With me in the studio are our panelists, Andrew Whitehead, writer and senior journalist. We have Professor Makarand Paranjpe, director of the India Institute of Advanced Studies. We have Dr. Walter Anderson, former US official in the State Department, also author and academician, and Lord Meghnad Desai, author and professor emeritus at the London School of Economics. Good evening and welcome to all of you. We've had a few hours of break. I believe the numbers have you've had enough time for the numbers to sink in. Even though these are just exit polls, they're very, very significant figures and trends. Is this what you expected the result will look like?
I think we know the trend very clearly. Mamata Banerjee may not trust the exit polls, but the markets are putting their money on the exit polls, and I think that tells us a lot. I don't think there's any systemic fault in these polls, so I'm fairly confident they're giving us the direction of travel. Whether they're giving us the numbers quite right, I don't know. And the fact that there is such a variance about the seat breakup in Uttar Pradesh, in West Bengal, in Odisha, and also a lack of clarity about what's been happening in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu tells us that there's a lot of questions that won't be answered until Thursday. But I think we can say that the NDA will either have an overall majority or will be sufficiently close to it that they'll be able to get one quite easily.
Walter Anderson, do you believe that the pollsters failed to see a pro-incumbency wave? It was being touted as an election without a wave, but if these numbers are anything to go by, there was clearly a wave.
Well, I think to a certain extent they did, and as we were talking among ourselves, I think that's clear that if you looked at the polling prior to this, that they, even though they had the BJP in an advantageous position, it wasn't nearly as advantageous as these results seem to indicate. And it wasn't just the pollsters. I must say our fellow academics also didn't call it as accurately as apparently the results are going to be. So, and I've been getting emails all day from friends of mine in the United States saying, what happened? You know, because there was a certain surprise at the extent of the victory, and so they will be analyzed again, and I'm sure we will too, as to, you know, why the Indian public apparently turns so heavily to the BJP at this time, despite the fact the BJP has problems in its governance, which we can talk about. I mean, there are areas where it has to address, and in fact, the most interesting questions now is what next. Particularly, how will it handle, you know, assuming it's the BJP government, how is it going to handle the very real problems that it has faced the last couple of years? We often tend to forget about that in this kind of, you know, discussion of its victory, but it may be true, but the problems are still there. Absolutely, the problems are there, and people seem to have, if these polls are anything to go by, given the BJP and Narendra Modi by extension the benefit of doubt, and there's only so much that you can do in 5 years. That's what the BJP had started saying towards the end. When they came to power, they said, we are going to undo all the wrongs that happened under the Congress government. And towards the end of this 5-year term, they said, 60 years versus 5, you know, you can only do so much. So was this more than anything else a referendum on the Prime Minister?
Definitely, it was. But what I found most amusing when I looked at the morning newspapers is how every single opposition leader has rubbished these polls. Even very intelligent people like Shashi Tharoor have come out to say that exit polls are all false. He said exit polls are all wrong. And I find that really surprising. The other most amusing thing that I found is that all these opposition leaders want to gather together and ask for a recount or asking for, you know, these electronic voting machines to be re-examined. But here's the most curious stupidity on their part, which is exit polls have nothing to do with EVMs, with electronic voting machines. I mean, there's absolutely no relation between one and the other. So it seems to me that there is this sense that all these opposition leaders are really bad losers. And another very surprising remark that came out this morning was from my friend Yogendra Yadav, where he said the Congress should die. Did you see that? So this is a time of bizarre comments and allegations, you know, flying in the face of all sorts of reason. But another interesting thing I found in the morning was that Ram Madhavji predicted a huge wave in Bengal for the BJP. He said it's going to be like UP last time. It's much more than the exit polls have predicted. So I think these three things for me stood out. And of course it's a referendum, to come back to your question, sorry. Of course it's a referendum for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and it's a thumping yes. And as we heard earlier, the stock market says it all. It's at an all-time high, over 14,000 points higher, 14,200 or something.
Businesses are loyal only to the bottom line.
No, even so, it means it's a resounding, approval for the,
for the fact that this is going to be a stable government. If it's a clear majority, then it will be a stable government.
High. You can't take it lightly. It's an all-time high.
Indeed. I think others are also looking at which way India has voted and taking lessons. So we were talking about iftar politics in Pakistan and all opposition parties coming together at Bilawal Bhutto's residence because they want to take on the ruling dispensation as one force. Opposition in India is also still, the likes of Chandrababu Naidu, still making their moves. But do you believe that those who rubbish the exit polls have a point because all is not lost?
As an active politician, I have had to do this. When your party is facing defeat, but you're not actually finished all counting, you go on saying, no, wait till that region votes or wait till that result comes out. Because you have nothing else to say. You can't say, we've lost, What's the point of going on? So that's partly a political game. And the interesting thing would be that it is persistent thing about the 2004 exit poll, which somehow got it wrong. So people always point this out. But is the performance of exit polls improving over time? We will know on Thursday. That's an important thing. But I suspect the one thing we would want to look at is whether Congress has played a spoiler in UP. Has the Gathbandhan got fewer seats? If BJP has got half the seats, or maybe more than half the seats, then the Gathbandhan may have lost by a very small margin in many of the seats BJP won because Congress has taken votes away. And that would be very interesting to see whether some of the result, I don't think it would have affected the overall result. But had Congress stuck to the Mahagathbandhan, which it did not, BJP may have been more nervous. But it was not because it broke it.
So much has been said about UP and Bengal, and these, as we said, are the battleground states, and the exit poll numbers vary. In UP, there's a difference of 40 seats. Irrespective of Bengal and UP, the BJP is anyway in the lead if you look at all the other states where it has swept. So does it really matter?
The UP case, I think, is interesting. A point that I had made yesterday, the two major opposition parties in this alliance represent different parts of the social scheme in UP, and that have historically been at each other's throats. The Bahujan Samaj Party represents Dalits and people without land, and the Samajwadi represents the peasant farmer. So one group has the land that the other one wants, and that has been, a cause of fighting. And I'd be curious to see how much transferability there was, looking at the results and compare them with the two parties' results last time. Do they add up? In other words, if you got 10% and 15% last time, does it add up to 25% this time? I have a guess it does not, because they did not perform as well as I thought they were going to. With the numbers of the communities, they actually should have done much better.
But there's no doubt about is that Samajwadi and the BSP have done better together than they would have done apart by quite a long way. And the message from the BJP's clear dominance of politics is if opposition parties want to make an impact, they absolutely have to join forces before elections. And I think they've actually got to come together and say, if we win, this is who we're going to have as our Prime Minister. That's what the opposition parties have failed to do, and it gave Narendra Modi, a lot of space.
So is the only opposition success story, according to the exit polls, the Gathbandhan in Uttar Pradesh?
Well, we don't know how successful that's been, but certainly it's a success story compared to the state elections in UP and compared to 2014. But there have been others, so it looks as if the DMK has done very well in Tamil Nadu, but there have been some catastrophic disasters, and I think particularly of what seems to have happened in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and perhaps Chhattisgarh as well. Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh very evenly balanced in the state elections 6 months ago, but with the Congress having all the patronage which comes with forming a state government, and the BJP, one assumes, demoralised by those defeats, and then 6 months later it seems as if the BJP sweeps both those states. That seems to be a tremendous vote of no confidence in the to be blunt about it, Congress old-timers who were appointed as chief ministers in those two states.
Right. Are there any states which surprise you? Odisha, for instance, the BJP's cadre base is not so big for them to win, and if they're winning the number of seats that the exit polls say they are, then it seems they're winning some coastal seats as well, where the party is not very strong. Or Maharashtra, for instance, a huge chunk out of 48 was...
Absolutely. You know, but I think what Andrew said made a lot of sense, that the opposition, to survive, will have to come up with new formulae. Even if they're fighting each other for the, assembly elections, they'll have to come together for the Lok Sabha elections in the future. And this will also confuse voters, but they will have to find new weaponry, as it were, to hit back against this formidable arsenal of the BJP. And when it comes to surprises, I think that Chandrababu Naidu, it's kind of half and half there, but there are polls which suggest that he's losing in his own state. Exactly. So where is he going to be a kingmaker trying to put everybody else together? And I also think that, it's really a very challenging period for state assembly party, people who are ruling the states with a flimsy majority, like Madhya Pradesh or Karnataka. I think we're going to see these governments, under a lot of stress unless they're actually going to fall. I think this is what's going to happen in the next few days.
The stress injections have begun already. We'll discuss Madhya Pradesh in detail in